Hi, everybody. It's Eric Murray from the SugarHuddle.com. Well, Sunday night's rematch of the Packers and the Vikings almost for a little while felt like deja vu because the first time back in week 2 at Lambeau in what resulted in an unfortunate tie for both sides. Of course, neither team seemed like they could make a field goal in that one. Of course, the Vikings squandered multiple game-winning opportunities in that regard, and of course they ended up cutting their kicker. They brought in Dan Bailey, the veteran who was like the second most accurate kicker in NFL history when they signed him. And unfortunately for Minnesota, he's been pretty hit or miss, better than the last kicker, Daniel Carlson, but overall he's been pretty hit or miss. And in this one, same way on Sunday night, he missed 2 long field goals late in the half as both sides were tied at 14 all. But down the stretch in the second half, Kirk Cousins, who's not known for his big game heroics, was able to get it done in the second half, led a field goal drive to go up 17-14. And then, of course, after a nice punt return by Marcus Sherrills, quick 31-yard drive by the Vikings really pretty much sealed it because he connected with Adam Thielen from 14 yards out, made it 24-14, and down the stretch the Vikings defense continued to have an exceptional night. They forced the Packers to punt pretty quickly, and then the next time out, Green Bay was able to drive down the field, had to settle for a field goal, couldn't get the onside kick, and that was all she wrote in the 24-17 victory for Minnesota. So, in Minnesota's case, it wasn't a must-win necessarily, although it was very close to it, and you pretty much needed to win it. But it was definitely a must-win for Kirk Cousins and certainly his psyche, and above average season, but not really living up to the hype of his big contract. And of course, in the case of the Packers, it was a full-on must-win. And now, of course, they dropped to 4-6-1, 0-6 on the road. Really, really tough for them. Aaron Rodgers, another kind of mediocre game. He had less than 200 yards passing. He was sacked 4 times by Minnesota's defensive line. And, Green Bay only had 254 total yards of offense, 2 for 10 on third downs. This is the second stint with Joe Philbin as their play caller. It was great the first time around, not so great this time around, but again, Mike McCarthy's been around this entire time, and everybody anticipates he'll be fired after the season. I know Green Bay was 4-6 a couple years ago, won 6 in a row to make the playoffs, but this time around, you've only got 5 games in a row to end the year. 9-6-1 might not be enough to make the playoffs, and frankly, I just don't see this team winning that many games in a row. Their defense isn't that great. Didn't give up a whole lot of rushing yards this time out, but they, got shredded through the air again by Cousins, who had 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 375, and I believe 4 touchdowns in week 2 against the Packers. Clinton Dix, he hasn't been that great in Washington, but he was, exceptional for Green Bay, and Green Bay definitely is missing him right now. And, Packer offense, again, play calling just not there. 254 yards, just over 25 minutes time of possession. You just have to wonder, where is this football team going? It's just time that they got to move on from McCarthy. Again, even if they were to somehow win 5 in a row and somehow sneak into the playoffs, what do you realistically expect this football team's going to do? I don't see him making it run in the playoffs. The only thing that's really going to save his job is frankly, if they can get to the Super Bowl, and this team's just not doing it. So they need a change in play calling, change in philosophy. They, for a while there, it looked like they were really going to commit to the running game, and they still haven't fully committed to it, and they're still asking Rodgers to do too much. And they're still putting him in tough situations and getting behind the sticks a lot. So really, really difficult. And then the other side of it, you look at the Vikings, they didn't have a great night running the ball, but they made just big play after big play. Stephon Diggs had a 30-yard touchdown reception where he did kind of an X cross, almost like a borderline pick with Thielen, and he was able to slip past, I believe it was Tramon Williams, who was covering him on the play for the easy 30-yard touchdown reception. Dalvin Cook had a real nice touchdown catch out of the backfield earlier in the game on a screen. It was real shifty. Of course, he's a real heck of a player. Thielen, that touchdown catch that essentially sealed it. So, Minnesota's making all the Minnesota's making all the big plays. Green Bay, they did have a couple of nice longer plays here and there, including a couple from Devontae Adams, one for a touchdown. But overall, Rodgers tried to distribute the football, only completed like 17 passes, like I said, less than 200 yards. And outside Adams, who had 5 catches, I think the next receiver had maybe 2 receptions, something like that. So just a real tough day. Like 82 yards rushing. I think Aaron Jones had 72 and a score. So, overall, Green Bay's really just not going anywhere at this point. Things aren't going to get any better for them. And for Minnesota, now you're 6-4-1, you're 4-2 at home, and you're still keeping pace with Chicago. Probably not going to surpass them in this final month plus. Still probably have to settle for a wild card, but at least you feel a lot better because you remember you got Seattle, who's surging, they're 6-5. Carolina's falling apart, they're 6-5. You've got that whole gaggle of the NFC East where you've got the 6-5s of Dallas and Washington, plus 5-6 Philly, who's suddenly back in it. So it's really important that you find a way to keep winning these games for Minnesota, and I think this definitely was big for Kirk Cousins because, again, it would have been a much bigger deal if he would have played a lot better against Chicago in Chicago and won that game last week. But still, to beat Green Bay, knowing that the Packers with Rodgers and company are capable of going off and capable of being a playoff team, to get this win is really important for Cousins. And again, he's got over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns and 2 games against them this year. So that's huge. And it'll be interesting to see what he does down the stretch. But I think, not to be overly dramatic, but I think this was a nice statement for him. Everybody's saying that he's got $84 million fully guaranteed contract, and he's just not doing enough with it. So, Minnesota, their defensive line, 4 sacks. We know that they're getting stronger and stronger. Their defense as a whole is getting stronger. Gave up a couple of nice chunk passing plays early on, which obviously is a big concern with their secondary, but down the line, they, all the third down stops, like I said, and then the game-changing play late in the third quarter, I believe it was late in third quarter, early fourth, Green Bay, actually, I'm sorry, it was early third quarter. I think it was Green Bay's maybe their second drive of the third quarter. They got it at their own 35. They faced 3rd and 2, did a run with Aaron Jones, who, came up about a half yard short, and then they decided to actually stay out there and go for it on 4th and 1, and Jones was stopped short of the first down, basically the same exact run, same exact result, and Minnesota was able to get that field goal, and then later the touchdown and go up by 10. So things like that, really a killer for a team like Green Bay, and for Minnesota, definitely showed that their defense is starting to come around. I mean, even in Chicago last week, not an amazing defensive performance, but they did enough to keep themselves in the game, and ultimately, their offense just too little, too late. Next time out, they're at New England next Sunday, so that's going to be really interesting to see. New England's got a shorter passing game, and even though they were exceptional against the Jets on Sunday, the last few weeks their passing game hasn't been real great. Tom Brady had only had 1 touchdown pass combined in the previous 3 games. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Minnesota's pass rush can get to Brady, very similar to what Tennessee was able to do a couple of weeks ago. So it's a really intriguing matchup. It's a 425 game, so it's another big national TV type of game, and I'm really interested in seeing what they can do, because they're still in a position where they could maybe win the division, at the very least get into the playoffs, but this would be another big building block for Kirk Cousins and company. So we'll see how it goes. But again, nice win for Minnesota. Pretty much a must-win, just like it was for Green Bay, but again, especially a must-win, mentally speaking, again, for Cousins. So anyways, that was a good one for Minnesota. Pretty much a season ender for Green Bay, I'm assuming. But anyways, please go to thesugarhuddle.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my Facebook page, The Sugar Huddle, and I'll get back to you again soon. Thank you.